Secretary Granholm, welcome back to The Issue Is, and welcome back to California.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
The big issue in California right now is keeping the lights on. This Labor Day weekend, it is hot. The power grid is stressed. How confident are you that we don't have rolling blackouts, and what role does the federal government have in sort of helping keep the state going?
Yeah, first of all, you are fortunate that you have an incredible, what is known as the California ISO, and they are organizing the energy market for California, and they are so good. In speaking with them, they have asked for example, from the federal government waivers so that they can get any kind of energy that they need where it needs to go. So they know how to manage the flow, and so I'm really confident in the leadership of the state in making sure that energy is flowing. But there is no doubt that everybody's using air conditioning, and so there's a real pull on the grid. So I think that they're wise. I know that they moved off of this and on this, but they're wise to ask people, I think, to conserve where they can, just to make sure that we can get through. In the meantime, though, we've got to add more clean energy to the grid, and that is a critical part of what the president has been focused on, and I know the governor is focused on.
And part of that right now is nuclear power.
Yeah.
I know you are a supporter of the fact that Diablo Canyon's life is going to be extended to 2030.
Potentially. It's not a done deal yet. I'm grateful that the legislature made that possibility open, but they've got to apply. PG&E has to apply. It's part of a process in the federal government. But the fact that that life is potentially going to be extended is really important because, of course, nuclear is zero carbon emitting baseload power. And I'm a proponent of nuclear power. I think that the next generation nuclear power is really important as well. So let's keep what we have while we get through this period of time, because these extreme weather events are going to continue to happen, meaning extended droughts, extended heat waves. And so we've got to keep clean power on even as we build out the renewable power that we also want to see.
So why not expand nuclear? Because
We want to
basically this
expand
is because in this state, though, there are no plans to expand nuclear anywhere. Diablo Canyon is still a plan about when do you shut it down, not open a new one.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that, and every state is different, right? So you have to respect what is acceptable for that state, but a lot of states are expanding nuclear. A lot of states are looking at these next generation advanced modular reactors, which are smaller, and all sorts of countries are looking at this as well as we face globally the potentially, especially in Europe, the close off of natural gas from Russia, et cetera. There's no doubt that next generation nuclear is very exciting and very safe. And the designs that have been approved by our Nuclear Regulatory Commission are very much getting uptake in other countries and in the United States and other parts of the United States.
So it sounds like your advice to California might be take another look at this issue.
They might want to take a look at it. I mean, if I were here, I would. I understand people are concerned about nuclear waste. Totally understand about that. And so we are at the Department of Energy asking for states who are interested to have a conversation about being a place for a safe repository of nuclear waste, so that states who have nuclear facilities don't have to be the repository for that. And California has unique issues because of its earthquake proneness. I understand that. But the next generation of modular small reactors would be, are much safer in that regard. Not that the current, not that Diablo Canyon or anything is unsafe. They are safe. They're safe reactors. They've run for decades. But I understand the concern, and we want to respect local decision making.
And of course, it makes sense that technology that's new might be a little better than technology that's 40 years old.
Of course.
What about hydrogen power? Do we like that as a concept?
Yeah, of course. And in fact, the bipartisan infrastructure law funded at least what we hope will be at least 4 to 8, maybe even more hydrogen hubs. And so communities are vying, states are vying to be designated as a hydrogen hub. When I say hydrogen, I'm talking about clean hydrogen, and that means hydrogen usually, that is powered by renewable energy. Hydrogen is a super exciting next generation technology that could be that baseload dispatchable power. and zero carbon emitting, of course, is the goal. So hydrogen is definitely on the radar.
So California made national headlines by becoming the first state to say by 2035 we're not going to have any gas-powered vehicles that are new that are being sold. You can still drive your old ones, but you can't sell new ones. You like this concept?
Yeah, I do. I think California really is leaning in. And of course, the federal government has a goal the president has announced by 2030 that half of the vehicles in the U.S., the new ones sold, would be electric.
Do you think what California is doing could or should be a national model?
Could be. I mean, I know every state is different, and you always have to respect what the states are doing. But I do think that once California has gotten more used to electric vehicles, and we have to bring down the price of electric vehicles so that everybody can access them. And this is why it's great that there's a $4,000 tax credit, for example, on used electric vehicles that has just been adopted through the Inflation Reduction Act. But once we bring down the price of electric vehicles, and that means the technology that goes into those vehicles, which is the battery, bringing down that price as well, I think people will really like people who have electric vehicles never want to go back. I drive a Chevy Bolt, and I would never go back to an internal combustion engine vehicle. So once they get more acceptable, I think those numbers don't sound as daunting.
Some people obviously are concerned about the cost. Another concern a lot of people have is the grid. We talked about this earlier this week. We had this situation this week where they say, don't charge your electric vehicles during peak hours, which is kind of scary for people that think a few years from now we're going to have all electric vehicles out there. What happens then? What do you say to people who feel like we're just not going to be ready by 2035? That's not realistic.
Well, 2035 is a long way away as well. We have to add power to the grid, clean power. We've got to add transmission lines to be able to bring that clean power to places where it's needed. All of that is happening right now. All of that, we're pushing on all of these levers simultaneously to get clean power onto the nation's electric grid. We have got to double the size of the electric grid in this country, not just for electric vehicles, but because of the growth of the country and because we want to move away from fossil fuels or to decarbonize the existing fossil fuel industry. So we've got to add to the grid, and we're doing that. It's part of the investments in the transmission that were passed by Congress in both the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act.
And let's talk a little bit more about the Inflation Reduction Act, because congratulations, it's the biggest investment in climate in the history of this country. When people hear budget numbers, most average people are like, what does that mean to me? So for the average person that's watching this right now, what does this mean to them? How does this impact their life? What are they getting out of this?
So on a very granular level, for people who want to reduce their energy costs, this means that there will be rebates for them to install, for example, heat pumps to replace their HVAC system, which uses often a lot of natural gas and electricity, for a much more efficient pump, which is electric, and that will heat and cool one's home. Same thing, if you want to, the rebates are all tied to income. So if you install a heat pump and you're lower income, you can get the whole thing paid for. If you're medium income, you can get $8,000 back. If you install an electric induction stove, you can get $850 or $840 back on a rebate. Plus, if you want to install solar panels on your roof, a 30% tax credit off the top. If you are low income, you can have this all done as part of our weatherization assistance program. So all of this for real people, for home energy costs, it's all bringing it down. On the big level, of course, it incentivizes utilities, businesses to install solar, to do utility scale, big solar fields, big wind farms, so that we can add that clean electricity onto the grid, which is, from an individual point of view, it's also healthier. It's so much healthier for people to breathe.
And so for the average person that hears that says, that sounds good to me, how do they get that credit? How do they access that?
Yeah, so the rebate, this is what I would say, is if you're thinking about replacing any of your appliances right now, I would say wait for a few months, because we have to write the rules for the rebates, and that means we've got to consult with the manufacturers. So there's going to be a little bit of time, but you can start thinking and planning for that. For those who are lower income, so say you make $60,000 for a family of 4, you can contact your weatherization, your local community action agency to get your home weatherized right now to be able to bring those bills down. So, and this all, much of it will be running through the states. So California, California will be the place, the hub for making all this happen.
Very exciting. Something else that's exciting, I'm sure, for you is that gas prices have been going down for a while now. But
yes.
We know this is a global phenomenon. You can't control all
Yep.
of the gas yourself because there's so many other things that are going. But where do you see in terms of the forecast of gas prices going forward? Because here in California they're the highest, and we're such a car culture here.
Yes, yes, totally. First of all, it is a global thing. So the reason why gas prices went through the roof is because Russia invaded Ukraine, and Russia was a big exporter of oil. Oil gets refined into gasoline, and that's why the prices are up, because that supply was taken off the market. The president said, we want to fill in that hole that Russia created by invading Ukraine. We want to add more supply to the market. So he has the biggest tool at his disposal, which is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And that's the U.S. has barrels of oil in reserve that we are releasing now 1 million barrels a day to be able to stabilize supply and demand to keep these prices coming down. So that's why you've seen in the United States over $1. I mean, it's dropped every single day for, throughout the entire summer. California still has high because your taxes are so much higher than the rest of the country, your gas tax. But hopefully we will see this stabilize. Now, the Energy Information Administration inside of the Department of Energy forecasts what the price will be. And on a national average, it's looking like it's about where it's going to stabilize right now. I will say this, though, depending on what happens globally. I mean, if China decides that because of its COVID lockdown, it opens up, and that means everybody in China starts to drive again, that means demand will go up, and that means prices will go up globally. So it just totally depends on what's happening globally. And this is, of course, why the president is so eager to provide incentives to move to electrification so that we are not reliant upon global fossil markets for our energy use.
Right. And of course, the president suggested a suspension of the federal gas tax.
Right.
Do you think a suspension of the California gas tax makes sense?
It's something worth considering, although, as we've seen, the price is coming down. I know California is used to a little bit higher gas prices than the rest of the country, but it doesn't make it any easier for people who are just trying to get to work and who are of moderate means.
We are talking with Jennifer Granholm, the Secretary of Energy. Want to talk a few moments about you. Before you were in this job, you were on TV all the time talking about the political realities. So if we could get your pundit hat for a second, where do you see the state of the midterms right now? A lot has changed in the last few months.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching the fact that the president has been achieving all of these wins is just amazing. Whether it's gas prices coming down, or the Inflation Reduction Act, or the bipartisan infrastructure law. This week you also heard another 315,000 jobs being created, more jobs created under President Biden than any president in the history of the United States at this point. So it's win, win, win keeps going, and there is a really big contrast that is being created, obviously, and I think with what happened at the Supreme Court with the Dobbs decision, the contrast is really clear, and I think that people are starting to feel better about the chances of the president and the president's party.
And yet there are still some Democrats that question whether he's too old, that question whether he should run again. Give us some insight into what he's really like behind the scenes, what cabinet meetings are like. What do you say to those critics?
Oh my gosh, I wish that they could see the president at meetings, at cabinet meetings, et cetera. I mean, he's with all the experience that he has so much depth of knowledge, and when he's so incisive, he's asking questions, he knows these leaders, across the globe, he knows the issues, he knows how and on top of all of that, I mean, he's just incredibly sharp. On top of that, he has this incredible heart for real people, and in cabinet meetings, he will tell us all, you guys, do not talk in jargon. Talk to people. What is this going to do for real people? What is this going to do for this community, for the jobs there, for people putting food on the table? I mean, he is the leader for our time. I hope he runs again, because he has been amazing. And I can just say he's a man with such a good heart and soul. There's no, I don't know. I mean, I really am so grateful to be as part of his cabinet.
Well, we want to play a couple quick games to get to know you a little bit better. This is called the name game. This is where we say the name of somebody and it's the first thing that comes to your mind. So I was thinking to take us inside that cabinet room. These are members of the cabinet. First thing that comes to mind when you think of them, okay? Let's start with the president himself, Joe Biden.
Good man, good heart.
The vice president, Kamala Harris.
Smart, so smart.
The secretary of Treasury, Janet Yellen.
Okay, short and smart. She's so little.
The secretary of defense, a little bit bigger guy,
Love
Lloyd
him.
Austin.
They sit next to one another at the cabinet meeting. He's a mountain. She's this little person, but really funny, the Secretary of Defense.
Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg.
Young, brilliant, unbelievably capable of speaking in full paragraphs without a pause. He's amazing.
The Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo.
Oh, love her. Former Gov. We have worked together. Sharp as a tack, knows business.
And finally, because I can't do everybody, the Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh.
Marty with that accent, Marty Walsh. He's the perfect guy for being head of labor because he comes from the labor movement. So no frills, no fuss, Marty Walsh.
So this next game is called Personal Issues. This is 30 seconds. First thing that comes to mind, these are your favorites, not personal issues, we're not going to therapy.
Okay.
Just cultural favorites, first thing that comes to mind, okay? What's your all-time favorite book?
You know, I just finished reading this book and it's not my all-time favorite, but the first thing that comes to mind is American Prometheus, which is about Oppenheimer.
Okay. Favorite TV show?
I am rewatching the Game of Thrones so that I can watch the latest episode.
Okay. I don't know if that says something about Washington. Now I'm in Washington watching Game of Thrones. Favorite athlete?
Serena.
Ah, good choice. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? I really, Patton, believe it or not, It's a Wonderful Life.
Nice. Favorite type of music?
I like Motown.
Oh, great choice. What is your favorite way to relax?
I like to run.
Who's your favorite Republican?
My father.
Oh, good choice. And this may be the same answer. Who's your role model?
My father passed away. He would be a role model, certainly. But the first thing that comes to mind is another role model who also passed away. But I loved Ann Richards, former governor of Texas.
Yeah. What a spitfire she
Yes,
was.
yes.
And last question. We know you were born in Canada and you were the governor of Michigan, but you spent so much of your life here in California.
I did.
Grew up in both Southern California, Northern California, went to Berkeley, taught at Berkeley.
Yeah.
How has California shaped your worldview?
Well, I love the fact that California is unabashedly bold about energy policy. Obviously, that's where I'm interested in. You know, I think it's the canary in the coal mine, although I don't want to say the rest of the country is a coal mine, but at least a leading indicator for the rest of the country. And so California's boldness has, I think, shaped our willingness in the federal government to move further and faster, because we can see the good and the bad about moving fast and learn from California.
Next time you come on, I'm going to have some Motown ready for you. Do
All
you have
right.
a favorite song or favorite?
Well,
Motown?
Aretha, R-E-S-P-E-C-T,
Okay.
you know.
There you go. Well, we're giving you some respect. Thank you so
I
much,
appreciate
Secretary
it.
Jennifer
Thank you
Granholm.
so
Great to
much,
have you
Alex.
here on The
Yeah,
Issue Is.
great to be on.